I am Chasitey Kyle. I am here in Knoxville. I'm a mom of 5 living children, and just gonna let you fill you in on my testimony. The past 5 years of my life have been pretty tragic and traumatic. So I don't know, I'm still here and hopefully it's helpful to someone else to see what God's done in my life to keep me going through really tough times. I was from Knoxville. My dad was in the military. I was saved in Jacksonville, Florida, at a church, Oak Harbor Baptist Church. I was 11. It's funny, I remember May 14th. It was just a weird feeling that Sunday. I was shaking out, I don't know. I just knew that was it, and was baptized after. We ended up coming back to Knoxville, and I've been here. And to start the tragic journey, in my 20s, I lost my dad very suddenly. I was the oldest of 4 kids. It was very, very sudden and tragic. My mother was not able to function well at that time, so me and my sister, handled all the arrangements. It was, I won't go into details about that, but very, very hard. We're a very, very close family. And my dad was very young. He was 43. So it that started a hard time in life. And then fast forward, I was married. I was married for 15 years to my husband was Doug. He is one of the most beautiful souls you'd ever meet in your life. Anybody that talks to him or talks about him talks about what a family man he was and how much he loved Chas and the kids. So, a great man, a very imperfect man, but nonetheless, was just a good soul. So he got sick in 2020. We started noticing some things. He had some issues, even within our marriage we had some things, but always decided to work it out. And actually in January of 2021 he started swelling real bad. We're trying to figure out what's going on. By April we figure out he has cirrhosis. He was 36 years old, so that was surprising. It was surprising. There had been alcohol in the equation, but nothing that seemed to be so much more than other people. I don't know, but we figured that out and thought we were on a road to healing, but then by May it just got worse and ended up having to take him to the emergency room. He was swelling so bad then in his abdomen, and they said that he was an active liver failure, and if he made it another 6 weeks we would be lucky. We'd be looking at he'd be looking at a liver transplant. So started kind of panicking. It was a 15-day hospital stay. When he finally was released, we're on the waiting list at Vanderbilt, but they said if you make it 6 weeks, you're great, or you're lucky, but then we didn't have an appointment for 8 weeks. So then, I'm trying to get him on a list somewhere else. So we go to Memphis. We were trying to get into Kentucky, Alabama, anywhere that could get him in sooner. But finally, because his numbers had been so bad, they bumped his appointment up at Vanderbilt. So we go to Vanderbilt the summer of 2021, and his numbers had improved. So we thought, okay, we can make it maybe another 2 years before, you have to actually do this, if at all. So, because the liver transplant, some people were, excited about, and it's still very scary. It is not the answer to everything. It just buys more time, really. So it was pretty terrifying. But we had hope, great hope, after that appointment that we could at least put it off, and or not put it off, that it wasn't needed right then. So we were just very hopeful. And then the beginning of September, that was the end of July of 2021, the beginning of September, he got COVID. And he was a hypochondriac anyway, but it's funny because I was like, you're fine. You have a fever. Because I had it too. I was like, you were fine. He said he needed to go to the emergency room. I'm like, okay. Okay. But he did. Of course, they admitted him. Of course, everybody was being admitted then. And he seemed, he was weak and his oxygen was low, but otherwise was doing okay. Of course, we couldn't go see him. My daughter would go and drop him off Wendy's and a milkshake, and we'd FaceTime. And there was a Friday night, I guess what would be September 17th. We're from Powell, had his football hat on, and my daughter is a cheerleader, so he's FaceTiming us at the game. And they tested that day, he was COVID negative, so I was going to get to go the next day to see him. Because of course I hadn't been there, but all the kids had sports, but they were early in the morning and I hadn't been able to go, so I was going to get them situated and go spend the day finally. And it's funny because what I found out later is he had a nurse that was there and come asked her to wash his hair because my wife gets to come tomorrow. So we FaceTimed and texted until about midnight. And it was 12:03. I have the last message where I had gone to bed so that I could get up and get going in the morning. And I woke up to my phone ringing at 5:30 in the morning. And in hindsight, or actually then it's like a movie when I think about it, when I saw the phone and I saw the number, even though I didn't know the number, I knew it was the hospital. And they said that he had, his heart had stopped, which made no sense because UT and Vanderbilt had just done extensive work on his heart, making sure that he was okay for a liver transplant and all. His heart was fine, his kidneys were fine, it was only the liver. So they said that it took 34 minutes to get him back, but they did get a pulse, that he was being transferred to intensive care, and he had been ventilated. So I thought, okay, well that's okay, can I come? They said, well, he's, COVID. I said, no, they tested him yesterday. I'm coming today. He's negative. So they had to check. They called me back at 6 on the dot and said, yes, we confirmed you can come. I went. And I was standing there on the intensive care floor, and as I'm waiting for them to let me in for the room, they were getting situated. I could see through a window, they were working on a room over here on the left. And obviously they had to free up before they could come let me in. And so in my mind, I thought that he was over here on the right. And then after a few minutes of waiting, they came out. And it was a nurse that I knew, a different one. And said, his heart stopped again. It turned out that was his room. So his heart stopped again. It was going to be very touch and go. It was going to be a long weekend. He didn't look okay, but I could go in and see him. So I said, okay, I know, it's fine. Hey, this isn't our testimony. Like, he's going to be fine. I'm not freaking out because he's going to be fine. I'm not panicking. I got to go in and see him, and he wasn't conscious. And, I had to get the kids situated. So I was there for about 30 minutes and thought, okay, I need to go get all the kids dropped off, and I'm coming back like the plan was. And eventually he'll wake up and everything will be fine. So I left. I went and got Roman, at the time, was 8. And he had a football game. His was earliest. So I picked him up and was taking him to the ball field to drop him off. I was going to let our friends, keep him for the day. And as I pulled into the parking lot, I got a phone call from a doctor and said, just need to let you know, he's really not doing good and he's not going to make it through the day. And it's going to be the next couple of hours. If you're any family, you need to get here. And I can't even describe what that felt like, because at the same time I have his son in the car. So I just found my friends, walked him into the game, and just told them, I need you to keep him. until I can get him. And they did. They were our family. So I knew at that moment I needed to get my big kids at the time, who were 16 and 13, so that they could say bye to their dad, because I knew that they would want to. I had shared a little bit about it. So by the time I was on my way back to the house, I had also had to call another friend to come pick up the little girls, who were 2 and 3 at the time. So she was on the way, I'm getting the big kids, and then our pastor called and said that he would meet us there. So it was just me, the 2 big kids, and our pastor that went in, and we got to pray over him. And, you know, still at this point, I'm like, okay, I know this looks bad, but God is still in the business of miracles. This is gonna be an even bigger testimony when this turns around. But, you know, they got to see their dad, and at that point, family started coming in. You could only have 2 people in the room at a time. Later that day, I found out that, you know, the whole waiting room downstairs, everybody was with us. You know, thankfully, we were very involved in, you know, our church and the community, and just had a ton of support, but I didn't even know, because I was up there the whole time. And that day was part of it. I think my memory blocks out, but it was obviously a hard day. His heart ended up stopping 3 different times, and then they, you know, asked at one point, you want to do a DNR? And I remember looking at the lady, absolutely not. This man would want you to do everything you could to keep him here with me and the kids. So the last time his heart stopped, one of his friends' dad pulled me out. So I think it's time that you need to let him go. And by then I knew it was hitting me that this wasn't turning around. So he said, why don't you just let him unplug him and you go lay with him? So that's what I did. I went and laid on him until they made me leave, and just sang "You Are My Sunshine," because he already sang that to the kids. So, and just combed his hair. And they made me leave, and then I almost collapsed leaving the hospital, and I knew I had to go tell the kids that he really wasn't coming back. I don't even remember what I said. It was along the lines of, you know, I don't know what God's plan is, but we're gonna be okay. And we have to trust that. And I just remember, you know, the house was full of people. And later they said that whatever I said was great. But I don't know what that was. And then obviously I kind of was a hermit. You cannot describe what that feeling is like. And thankfully I had people around for a few weeks that handled everything for me. I just kind of said this is what I wanted to do, and thankfully I mean, my goodness, I'm so grateful for how loved we were. And then I was mad at God. I was very mad at God. I trusted him, but I was really mad that I thought that this would not be our story, that this wouldn't be his story. And then at 36 to be such a good man and you don't get to raise your kids. So mad. And I always knew that God would speak to you, but you have to open, you know, for him to speak to you. And I put it off because I did not want to hear from him. And after a couple of weeks, I finally knew that I had my Jesus calling in the closet. I knew it was there, you know. And I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna look. Because I couldn't just keep staying in the bed. And I have it right here so I can read. Because being so mad and being so upset, I opened it to the day that it was. He officially passed September 18th. And so this was October 6th, so it hadn't been that long. But I was not out of the bed. But October 6th, in Jesus Calling, said, be willing to follow wherever I lead. Follow me wholeheartedly with glad anticipation, quickening your pace. Though you don't know what lies ahead, I know, and that is enough. Some of my richest blessings are just around the bend, out of sight, but nonetheless very real. To receive these gifts, you must walk by faith, not by sight. This doesn't mean closing your eyes to what is all around you. It means subordinating the visible world to the invisible shepherd of your soul. Sometimes I lead you up a high mountain with only my hand to support you. The higher you climb, the more spectacular the view becomes. Also, the more keenly you sense your separation from the world with all its problems. This frees you to experience exuberantly the joyous reality of my presence. Give yourself fully to these glory moments, awash in dazzling light. I will eventually lead you down the mountain, back into community with others. Let my light continue to shine within you as you walk among people again. Obviously, I just remember, sometimes I lead you up the high mountain with only my hand to support you the higher you climb. I remember reading that, and I just, again, was so mad, because here we go. I knew that's what you were going to do, and you did it. And just speaking straight to me. But then it was obviously comforting that, he does have a plan. I don't have to like it. It's okay for me to be mad. It's okay for me to have questions. But he does have a plan. And I don't know. In hindsight, I think maybe, the issues he were dealing with, obviously he is healed. I was praying for healing, and he is healed. He's in heaven. It just wasn't the way that we wanted it here, and that was hard. It's obviously an ongoing journey to still trust that. I still have moments where it's surreal, and every good moment also has just a little sadness to it, because the things that he doesn't, to see my kids' pain, and I can't do that, or I can't fix that. But that's been a journey. I moved forward after that. It was around that time I got up out of bed. I started functioning again. I had to get the kids back to school. I went back to work a couple of weeks later. Thankfully, I worked for myself, but I had a team that I worked with who handled everything for me. I mean, all of it now in hindsight, God was orchestrating behind the scenes, leading me into my business to where I could support myself. So I see the blessings along the way when I look back now. That makes it easier when it's hard. But I ended up moving forward, and I got married. And what seemed like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is, my next chapter, and God is healing, and God is restoring, the broken parts of my life. Got married, and we decided to have an ours baby. Yours, mine, and ours. So, August 23rd of 2023, I had a son named Gunnar, and even though there were trials that summer through, a blending of a family, and just, it's hard, something I never thought I would be in, but nonetheless, this was part of my journey. But I had Gunnar, and it's so crazy because I never anticipated I would have a sixth child, but it was just wonderful. And I was surprised at how much energy I had, and not that, of course, I've appreciated each of my children. I was a young mom, but I was in different phases. That was why, my late husband and I had more. Because it was just such a great thing to do in different stages of life. But I had so much more energy and appreciation. I had just stared at his little mouth, and I remember seeing his little gum line when he would cry. It was like I liked hearing him cry, just because I could see, and just, oh my goodness, the detail that goes into humans, and he just created that. I don't know, being older, I was 36 when I had him, but it was just a different appreciation and staring at him. And at 18 days old, I woke up to his dad busting through the door saying he wasn't breathing. And I was laying there and I thought, well, that's dramatic. Give him here. So, because he had him that, and give him here. And then I remember looking at him and thought, oh, I mean, he's really not breathing, but I felt his little arm. I was like, well, he's warm. So, okay, this is okay. Because I had gotten the phone, I was calling 911. I don't remember exactly what happened, but then I got him and, started saying CPR, and I thought, well, why didn't I think of that? Of course, So, I couldn't hold him, and do CPR, and I've taken CPR classes, a couple of times, but I couldn't hold him. I was afraid. So I ran to the front porch, and I knew that the ambulance would be coming, and so I was like, well, that's even closer. So I sat on the step and started giving him CPR. And did that until they got there. And when I saw him pull up, and we were really close. So, I mean, that was probably 3 minutes max. But I met him in the front yard and handed him to him. Or handed him to them. And I just remember them sitting, and in my mind then, thought there's no way this is happening. I mean, there's no way this is happening. And I could see him working just, because he was so tiny. One of them was holding him, the other right in front of the ambulance. And they ended up taking him real quickly. And now in hindsight, I knew he was gone. But it didn't seem like that in the moment. And, so that was the last moment I didn't know that I would never hold him again. So, I remember the officer. I just remember seeing the boots, because I stayed on the front porch that day, and then people started showing up, the family came, and that's really a blur. But I remember seeing the boots of an officer saying that he didn't make it in, but at that point I knew, so it wasn't anything. They asked if we wanted to go to the hospital, and my husband, he wanted to, and I knew I couldn't do that. So I knew that there would be no way I could go to the hospital and leave without him. So I didn't see him again. But thankfully I could recognize what I needed, and that, but I struggle with why I had to get him and lose him after what I had already dealt with. So I do just cling to scripture and, my faith, because the only thing that makes any of this better is for there to be purpose in the pain. Otherwise, this is pretty awful. There's a few scriptures too, and this was a group had given me Loved Baby about devotions with this, and Isaiah 40:31. Yet those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. That's one, but one that has really helped me with Gunnar, because even though I do not understand this, I know that I was chosen to be his mother, and for whatever reason, this is my story. Psalm 139:13-16. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. I mean, God knew his plan from the beginning, even though I didn't know that. But it is really hard to wrap your mind around. I have several scriptures overall. I've tried to make a note of all of them. You know, Psalm 34, and the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and binds their wounds. And the number one verse that I cling to is Romans 8:28. We know all things work together for those who love him and are called for his purpose. I know none of this makes sense to me, but there is a plan in it. And that's again, like I said, purpose in the pain is the only thing that makes it better. I could read several scriptures. I could keep going of the ones that help me. But suffering, and what I learned over the past couple of years is, because now we're coming up on Gunnar's second birthday, he would be 2. And honestly, I lost my train of thought there. But I've learned about suffering, and God trusts you with suffering. And I do not understand why it's me. I've said there, you hear about 80-year-old ladies who lived through this and that and all the things, and are like, how did she do it? Well, I'm the 80-year-old lady. And now I'm 38. So I don't know. But James 1:12, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised those who love him. So that's really helped. So I lose Gunnar. About 90 days later, there was some revelation, many trials, and my husband left. And we were working through things, and that didn't last long, unfortunately. I don't believe in divorce. I think you can forgive anything. But not everybody believes that. So I tried, and then I finally had to protect myself. So there were lots of ugly things being said and done. So finally, in essence, or figuratively, went kicking and screaming into an attorney's office just to protect myself. Because I still have 5 kids. I still have to function. I'm only a few months postpartum at this time. It's all... that is for sure the lowest part of my life, because it brought everything back to the surface. The loss of my late husband and everything. So did what I needed to do to just protect myself, and thought, God can still turn anything around. That's fine. And if it's his will, that's what he'll do. So last summer I was asked, to reconsider, and I did. Worked through forgiveness, and was working through forgiveness. By late fall, it seemed like things were really turning around, and this might be what I had prayed for, for restoration, and to not, feeling for me sinful for a divorce, because I don't believe in divorce. So it didn't work either. And earlier this year, left again. So, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but there's been a lot on my plate, and trying to forgive things. I don't know. Now I'm not mad at myself for standing my ground, saying there were certain things I could not live with. And unfortunately ended up with another pregnancy. Not unfortunately, because I thought, oh, okay, well, this was also redemptive, and this is just another piece of the equation, and we're working through it. And within 2 days, seemed like I was miscarrying and had to go and be checked out, and that's what they confirmed, that it looked like it. I'm having a really hard time, like, Lord, after a loss of a child, and now it's a lot. So they said it looked like I was miscarrying, and to come back next week, make sure everything took care of itself. Well, when I went back a week later, and they said, oh no, you're still pregnant. It has implanted, but it's a cervical ectopic pregnancy. It happens 1 in 15,000. Of course it did. Of course. Like, what else do you want from me? I had to go into surgery that day because I was losing so much blood. My counts were so low that it was life-threatening. I filled in and let be known, and ended up, I got picked up from the hospital and I got dropped off. So here I was, grieving the loss of a second baby, because there was a heartbeat, and that is really hard for me and my beliefs because there was a heartbeat. But I didn't have a choice, and had to look it up, and everything right there is that there was 0 chance of survival. But no, that's still, for a believer, is that, it's a child of God for the moment of conception. And there's a heartbeat. As a mother who's already had a loss, just, and then for the situation to get uglier. I've had a lot of questions, but nonetheless, I've said nonetheless like a million times. I've made it this far, and God's not forgotten me yet, and He's not going to. So it's just rolling with the punches, it seems. And now, yeah, very much, another loss, and then a divorce. So things that I did not plan for and did not want to be a part of my story, and I fought hard against it, but have had to accept that this is my story. And it's not judgment. We don't have judgment because we're not we're not in heaven yet. So I know there's a plan. I see God's protection by everything that has happened this year, and previously. A couple other verses. 2 Timothy 3:12. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. There's one. And then lately, Isaiah 54:17, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. So again, there's purpose in the pain. I do not know how this, I do. Oh, and then this Habakkuk one, this is one I had, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right, Habakkuk. This one has really spoken a lot to me. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. And when I heard that one, that's not a verse, or a story I'd really heard until over the past couple of months, and given my situation now, that is one that is really speaking to me. It's because of all of this. I know it's part of the puzzle, and that you wouldn't believe it even if you were told. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You've got to be doing something good. So I don't know what that is, but I have faith that I've made it this far. I'm going to continue to power through. Only by the grace of God have I made it through this. I know prayer, in the hardest of times, I swear I have felt like I can feel prayers. When people, reach out and tell me they've been praying, it's like I know, like I can feel it, and I know that's all that has gotten me through. So I don't know what's next, but I know the one who does know what's next, and I just have faith that this all has a beautiful blessing to come from it, that I can even maybe help other people. I do believe fully that God gives us trials to help others, and I do. Anytime I hear anybody, obviously other widows have a soft spot in my heart, grieving mothers. My sister ended up losing a child last year in the same way I lost Gunnar, and that's crazy to have someone there. But now I someone that close who's gone through the same thing. And now I just know of another girl that has lost a child in the same manner, and so now I'm going to go, or hoping to get together with her. There have been widows that I've been put in touch with to help them, just how to move forward. I don't like when anyone says move on, because you do not move on, but you have to move forward. And I don't, other than scriptures and clinging to the fact that good comes from all of this, is that's all I know to do, and help guide someone along the way. But that is where I'm at. I don't know of anything else, but that's my story, and please pray for me. And if you know anybody that's gone through anything like I have, send them my way.